As we age, our emotional well-being can shift in subtle yet significant ways. For many older adults, feelings of sadness or withdrawal may quietly take root, often overlooked or mistaken for just getting older. But depression in the elderly is real, and recognizing its signs is the first step toward healing. Let's take a gentle look at this important topic together. 1. Withdrawal from social activities and relationships. One of the earliest and often most misunderstood signs of depression in older adults is social withdrawal. It's not always loud or dramatic. In fact, it's often quiet, almost invisible. A person who once enjoyed chatting with neighbors, attending community events, or even making regular phone calls may begin to slowly retreat into solitude. Invitations might go unanswered. Family gatherings may feel overwhelming. A once vibrant person begins to fade quietly into the background. And here's what makes this so hard to spot. This kind of withdrawal is often mistaken for a normal part of aging. After all, aren't older adults just naturally a little more tired? Don't they deserve to rest after a lifetime of busyness? But this isn't about needing rest. This is about a loss of interest. A deep, heavy disinterest in things that once brought joy. Gardening, grandchildren, Sunday brunch. Small pleasures that used to bring lightness now feel like burdens or worse, are met with indifference. In some cases, the person may still be physically present, sitting at the table, walking through the room, but emotionally they seem distant. Their responses might be shorter. Their laugh a little less frequent. They may not return calls or messages. Not because they don't care, but because something inside feels disconnected. This withdrawal isn't just about missing out on social events. It's a sign of an inner world that's growing quieter, more isolated, and sometimes darker. Depression creates a kind of emotional fog, and that fog often pulls people away from the very connections that could help lift it. There's another layer to this as well: shame. Many older adults were raised in times when talking about mental health wasn't common. They may not want to burden others. They might feel embarrassed or worry that admitting loneliness or sadness will make them seem weak or ungrateful. So, instead of reaching out, they shrink back. And yet, human connection is as essential at 70 as it is at 17. We never outgrow our need to be seen, heard, and valued. When someone begins to pull away from friends, family, or even casual acquaintances, it's not always about preference. It may be a symptom. A quiet but powerful call for help. So what can we do when we notice this in someone we love? Or in ourselves? We begin gently. We check in not just with "How are you?" but with questions that invite real answers. We say, "I miss hearing your voice." Or, "I'd love to sit with you for a while." No agenda. And if you're the one who's pulling back, know this. It's okay to feel what you're feeling. But you don't have to go through it alone. Reconnecting doesn't have to be big. It might start with a phone call, a walk outside, a moment of eye contact with someone who cares. These small steps can be the beginning of something important. The reawakening of a connection to life, to meaning, and to others. Withdrawal isn't just a symptom of age. It's a signal. And when we notice it with compassion, we can begin to gently shine a light back into someone's world. Changes in appetite and weight. When we think of depression, we often imagine sadness or tears. But for many older adults, the signs are far more subtle, like the quiet shifting of appetite. A once enthusiastic eater may begin skipping meals. A favorite dessert might sit untouched. Or meals that were once shared with pleasure are now eaten in silence, or not at all. This isn't about dieting or digestive issues. It's about a deeper change, one that begins in the mind and slowly makes its way into the body. In some cases, depression causes a complete loss of appetite. Food loses its flavor. Meals feel like chores. Even the act of preparing food can feel overwhelming. What used to be a simple pleasure, toast in the morning, a warm dinner in the evening, suddenly becomes too much. Too heavy. Too meaningless. In other cases, the opposite happens. Some older adults begin eating more. They may reach for snacks throughout the day, not out of hunger, but out of habit, or even as a form of comfort. Depression can bring with it a craving for sugar, processed foods, or late-night eating that provides temporary distraction from emotional pain. Either way, whether eating too little or too much, the result is the same: a body that begins to change. Unexplained weight loss or weight gain. Clothes no longer fitting the way they used to. Muscles weakening. Energy fading. Sometimes these changes are brushed off. We say, "Oh, it's just age," or "I'm just not that hungry anymore." But what we don't always see is that behind those words might be something deeper. A loss of purpose. A quiet sense of hopelessness. An emotional heaviness that makes even the act of eating feel pointless. It's important to recognize that these changes aren't just about food. They're reflections of a person's inner world. Food is emotional. It's cultural. It's deeply tied to memory, routine, and joy. So when someone begins to eat differently, it's often a signal that something inside has shifted. Let's take a moment to imagine someone you care about. Maybe they've lost weight recently, but they brush it off. Maybe you've noticed that their fridge is always nearly empty now, or that their once warm, lively kitchen feels quiet and untouched. These are not just coincidences. They are clues. And if you're experiencing this yourself, if you find yourself skipping meals, eating without joy, or losing interest in food entirely, know this: you are not alone. And it's not your fault. Depression doesn't always show up as sadness. Sometimes it shows up as a skipped breakfast, or a dinner eaten in silence. The good news is that there are gentle ways to reconnect. Starts with small steps. Sharing a meal with someone you trust. Preparing something simple and nourishing, even if it's just soup and toast. Keeping regular meal times. Listening to your body and honoring what it needs. If you're a caregiver or loved one, try to create moments around food that feel warm, not pressured. Invite, don't insist. Offer companionship, not critique. Even sitting together while someone eats, just being present, can bring comfort. Because this isn't just about nutrition. It's about nurturing. When depression affects appetite, it's not just stealing meals, it's stealing joy. And with compassion, awareness, and gentle support, that joy can return. Remember, changes in appetite and weight are not just part of growing older. They are part of a story. And every story deserves to be listened to with care. 3. Persistent fatigue and loss of energy. Imagine waking up in the morning and still feeling tired. Not just a little groggy, but deeply, heavily tired. As if your body is weighed down by something invisible. You slept through the night. There's no obvious reason for it. And yet, every movement feels like an effort. This kind of persistent fatigue is more than physical. It's emotional. It's mental. And for many older adults, it's one of the clearest, yet most overlooked signs of depression. Now, we all experience days where our energy is low. That's natural. But depression brings a kind of exhaustion that doesn't go away with a nap or a good night's sleep. It lingers. It drapes itself over your shoulders like a heavy coat, making even the smallest tasks feel impossible. Simple routines, getting dressed, making the bed, preparing a cup of tea, begin to feel like climbing a mountain. Plans get canceled. Chores are left undone. The couch or the bed becomes a refuge not because it's comfortable, but because anything else feels overwhelming. And here's what makes this fatigue so deceptive. It doesn't always come with sadness. In fact, many older adults who experience depression don't cry or talk about feeling blue. They just feel tired. All the time. Worn out. Drained. As if life itself has lost its color, its spark, its invitation to participate. Sometimes this fatigue is brushed off as aging. I'm just getting old, we say. Of course I'm tired. But age alone doesn't explain why a person who once walked every morning now rarely leaves the house. Or why they nap more and more but feel no more rested. Depression causes this through a mix of emotional weight and chemical imbalances in the brain. It affects motivation. It affects the body's rhythms. It even alters how energy is processed. So when someone says they're tired all the time, it's important we listen. Not just with our ears but with our hearts. And if you're the one experiencing this, if fatigue has crept into your days like an unwelcome shadow, please hear this. You are not lazy. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are facing something real. Something many others have faced. And help is possible. There are paths back to energy. Back to lightness. Sometimes it begins with movement, even a small one. A short walk. Stretching your arms in the sunlight. Drinking a glass of water. Or simply sitting by the window and letting the breeze touch your skin. For caregivers and loved ones, it's important to approach this with compassion, not urgency. Encourage but don't pressure. Offer help, not judgment. And remember that fatigue isn't always cured by doing more. It's healed by doing gently and with kindness. Support might also include speaking to a healthcare provider. Persistent fatigue, especially when paired with other symptoms like withdrawal or appetite changes, deserves professional attention. There may be treatments, medications, therapy, or lifestyle changes that bring relief. But the first step, the most powerful step, is simply acknowledging that this kind of fatigue is not just about growing older. It's a whisper from the soul. Quiet call for care. A sign that something inside is longing for rest, but also for renewal. When we understand that energy isn't just physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual, we begin to see that depression in older adults doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like sitting still for too long, like skipping the garden walk, like not answering the phone because even that feels too hard. So let us notice. Let us ask gently. Let us listen patiently, because behind that fatigue is a person, and that person deserves to feel alive again. 4. Feelings of worthlessness or guilt. There's a quiet ache that depression brings, one that doesn't always show on the outside. It lives in the thoughts we don't say aloud, the questions we ask ourselves in the silence of an afternoon, the moments when we wonder, does any of this still matter? For many older adults, one of the most painful signs of depression is the feeling of worthlessness. A belief, often whispered from somewhere deep inside, that their life has lost its value, that who they are or what they've done is no longer enough. These feelings can creep in slowly, maybe after retirement, or after the loss of a spouse, maybe when the phone rings less, or the holidays feel quieter. And at first they seem like fleeting thoughts, but over time they begin to settle in. They become the lens through which a person sees themselves. And it's not always just worthlessness. It's guilt too. Guilt for things long past, for decisions made decades ago, for relationships that didn't heal, for not being the parent, the partner, the friend they think they should have been, or simply for becoming a burden, as some sadly come to believe, to those who now help care for them. The mind can be cruel when depression takes hold. It drags old memories into the present and distorts them. It turns natural aging into a personal failure. It tells stories that aren't true but feel real. And the tragedy is, many older adults don't talk about these thoughts. They've been raised to be strong, to be self-sufficient, to endure without complaint. So they smile. They nod. They say they're fine. Meanwhile, they carry a storm inside. But here's the truth. Feeling this way doesn't mean you are broken. It doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. And it certainly doesn't mean you are without worth. In fact, it is often those who have given the most, who have loved the hardest, who have sacrificed the deepest, who find themselves struggling with these feelings in later life. Not because they have failed, but because they've given so much of themselves they're not sure what's left. So if you are someone who hears that inner voice of worthlessness or guilt, please know, that voice is not speaking the truth. You are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not too late, too far gone, or too forgotten. You are still needed, still valuable, still capable of love and of being loved. And if you care for someone who seems lost in self-judgment, remember, what they need most is not fixing. What they need is to be reminded of who they are. Tell them their stories matter. Remind them of the lives they've touched. Listen, not to offer solutions but to affirm their presence. Let them know that who they are today, not who they were, not who they think they should be, but who they are right now is enough. Sometimes healing begins not with answers but with kindness. Not with grand gestures, but with one sincere moment of being seen. And if professional support is needed, therapy, counseling, a doctor's care, then seeking it is not weakness. It is courage. It is a sign of self-respect. Because these feelings are not just part of getting old. They are symptoms. And symptoms deserve care. 5. Trouble concentrating or making decisions. Imagine reading a book and finding that the words just don't stick. You reach the end of the page, but realize you've forgotten what you just read. Or you walk into the kitchen, open the fridge and stand there, unsure of why you came in the first place. For many older adults living with depression, these moments aren't just occasional forgetfulness. They're daily companions, and they can feel deeply unsettling. One of the less obvious, but deeply impactful signs of depression in later life is difficulty concentrating, trouble staying focused, trouble making even simple decisions. And what's so important to understand is this: it's not a reflection of intelligence, or memory loss or capability. It's a symptom of emotional overload. When someone is depressed, the mind becomes cloudy. Thoughts slow down. Tasks that once felt automatic, like planning dinner, paying bills, or choosing what clothes to wear, suddenly become overwhelming. The brain is busy fighting an invisible battle, and that leaves little space for clear thinking. For many older adults, this brings on frustration, and often shame. A person who used to manage a household, raise children, or lead a career may now hesitate over a grocery list. That shift can feel humiliating. It can lead to self-doubt. And sadly, many will try to hide it, pretending they're fine, all while silently struggling. The world around them doesn't always understand. Friends may say, "You're just tired." Family may joke, "You're getting forgetful." But the person inside doesn't feel forgetful. They feel lost. Trapped in a fog, straining to find clarity but coming up empty. And that sense of fog extends to decision-making too. Depression makes everything feel heavier. So choosing what to eat, whether to go out, or how to respond to an invitation can feel impossible. Decisions that once took seconds now take hours or days, or get avoided entirely. The result? More isolation, more disconnection, and often more self-blame. But here's what's vital to remember: this is not a moral failure. It is not laziness. It is not weakness. It is a neurological and emotional symptom. And like any symptom, it can be addressed. It can improve. For those who notice this change in themselves, the first step is to speak with a healthcare provider. Trouble concentrating, especially when paired with other signs, like low mood, fatigue, or changes in appetite, is often a sign of treatable depression. A gentle conversation can be the beginning of real support. There are also small strategies that can help bring clarity back. Things like breaking tasks into smaller steps, writing lists, setting gentle routines, reducing decision fatigue by limiting choices, and most importantly, asking for help when needed. For caregivers or family members, the key is patience. When someone takes longer to respond or struggles to follow a conversation, resist the urge to rush them. Instead, slow down. Sit with them. Help create space for their thoughts to find their way forward. Because what they're experiencing isn't about being forgetful. It's about carrying something heavy. And what helps is not pressure but presence. With the right support, the fog can lift. Concentration can return. Confidence can be rebuilt. The mind, like the heart, responds to care. And every act of kindness, every moment of understanding becomes a thread that helps pull someone back into focus. So if you or someone you love is finding it hard to concentrate, or struggling to make decisions that once felt simple, pause. Look beyond the surface. And ask not just what's happening but what might be felt beneath it all. Sometimes the mind goes quiet because it's tired of holding so much pain. And sometimes the first step toward healing is simply being seen. Have you or someone you love ever experienced one of these signs? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every one, and your voice might just offer comfort to someone else watching today. If this video resonated with you, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue creating thoughtful, meaningful content that uplifts and informs. And if you found this video helpful, consider giving it a like. It makes a real difference.